morning, lovers of coffee and Jesus. Y'all, what a beautiful weekend. This past weekend, I know we're talking about Daniel. Actually, we're not going into 4 yet. I want to take it back a little bit because I've been kind of dropping little hints every now and then on a few things in relation to Daniel to Revelation, And so I just kind of want to hit on a few points of that. It's just things for you to chew on. I'm not saying anything too much about it. Other than, as we're doing this study in Daniel, there are some similarities just as getting into Daniel chapter 3. And one of the most powerful things, me and one of my closest friends, Mark Dunwa, were talking one day. We were on a road trip. And we were talking about some nerdy brain stuff because I love brain science and I get all nerdy about it. But we were actually talking about Dr. Dave Hawkins, I think it's Hawkins. Can't remember. I always get Steve and Dave Hawkins mixed up. But genius guy, okay? And he actually, he talks about the levels of consciousness. Ann Betts, which is one of, the most profound brain neuroscience coaches out there. Wonderful woman. If you watched if you watched Reconnection Blueprints, the interview series, she was on there, and her partner Ursula was on there. Super smart people. I love being around smart people. And we were just talking about, if you think about it, so in the levels of consciousness, this guy, Dr. Hawkins, he tested the Old Testament and the levels of consciousness, what number it is, and then he did the New Testament with the truth of Jesus, because it's based off of truth, and how much higher, when we're talking about the Gospels, the number is even higher. And then whenever we get to Revelations, this number's below the line. Oh, okay, well, what's that about? And it posed the question for me and Mark to kind of dialogue a little bit about, was Revelations even written for human beings? And yeah, I'm going there with y'all. Welcome to Coffee with Court. We talk about nerdy science stuff and, just things to chew about. And, I had kind of been dropping some hints along the way as to, in Revelations chapter 2. Now, we're not doing a Revelation study just because, out of all the books in the Bible, the one that I find creates the most fear or can cause people to get into fear. Oh my God, are we going into the tribulation? Or, are people going to hell? It's very interesting that, God is a God of peace and comfort, and yet, and unity, and yet the book of Revelation has caused some of the most schisms in history, some of the biggest fights in history, some of the biggest divisions as to the interpretation of it. Why would that be? Because that is not of God. And so, it really kind of plays a little bit into the concept that maybe the book of Revelations was not written for human beings. Because if you think about it, it is the judgment of Satan and demons, and yes, the people who, don't accept Christ as their Lord and Savior. And, people sometimes don't want to talk about this stuff, but, hell is a very real place. And okay, so let's get into how we get here from Daniel. So there are some things, there's definitely some parallels especially in Daniel chapter 3 and much later into Daniel, to just kind of address. But one of the biggest things that I really wanted to address is, I have been asking the question, who were the letters written to in Revelation, starting Revelation chapter 2? So let's uncover that for a second. All right, so in chapter 1, verse 20, I'm just going to kind of back the bus up a little bit. As for the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, to 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. Okay, so let's go into chapter 2. Remember, I said I've been telling you guys, practice reading the text very slowly. Chapter 2, verse 1. To the angel of the church in Ephesus, write. Okay, let's jump down to verse 8 in chapter 2. And to the angel of the church in Smyrna, write. Da, 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 da. And to the angel in Thyatira, write. Da, 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 da. Okay, so we've just established that the letters are not actually written to the churches themselves. According to the text, no theology, no grandioseness. According to the text, it's written to the angel of that church. Well, Court, why do we keep talking about this? You know, especially in our day and culture, angels play a much bigger part than I think we really give them credit for. I mean, I'm not saying that they are deities or anything, but angels play a huge part. We're totally unaware of what is going on in the second heaven, which is where the principalities are at work. A little bit later in Daniel, we're going to really hone in on some angelic activity. You know, even in chapter 3 here that we just did, Nebuchadnezzar sees a fourth in there. Now, the word says it could be the deity of God, so it could possibly be Jesus. Usually that's not the word that is used when it's referencing Jesus pre-incarnate. It's usually the angel of the Lord, which kind of makes me think maybe that's not Jesus. It could have been an angel sent there. I mean, we see angel activity throughout the New Testament, the Old Testament. Angels are everywhere in the Bible, okay? So why did I say that? I want you guys to understand how important it is to read the text, how important it is to understand that angels are a huge part of what is going on. And now let's kind of dig a little bit into some of the parallels. So in Daniel chapter 3, we see that an image or a symbol that man has made is being worshipped. You can even see a little bit of a parallel in Exodus here if you want to jump back to Exodus. We may do that because I love Exodus. When we start talking about the hidden face of God, we're totally going there. And some of you who have been to Israel with me, y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have this image that man is worshiping. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 14 speaks about a statue, the image. It's called, in Hebrew, it's the kaya, which means, in most of our interpretations, if you go into the Bible, it says the beast. But there is a statue or an image that people are told to worship. Now, what I find interesting is, you know, if you did not worship in Revelations, you died. You were going to be murdered or killed. In Daniel chapter 3, you got these kids, and if they refuse, before the king, if they refuse to worship this image, they were going to be killed. They were going to be thrown into the furnace. We've already gone through the story last week. Okay, so there we go. And then you've got the image in Daniel that's 60 cubits. Now, granted, this is written in Aramaic, so as for the numeral significance, I still believe that there is numeral significance because it is in the Bible and everything. There is not a single yod that is not important in the Bible, nor number. I'm not sure if Nebuchadnezzar knew what was going on, but I believe God did. So there you go. All right, so you've got an image that's 60 cubits. Number 6 represents humanity. The beast number is 666. Okay, so that's the number of man. And we can, if you guys want to know more about the number 6, I did not prepare for that today, but if you want to know more, just comment below and I'll elaborate a little bit on that. Okay, and then, so we've got in Daniel chapter 3, verse 4 through 6, those not worshiping are to be killed. In Revelations 13, verse 15, those who will not worship the image or take the mark will be killed. Daniel 3:19, the furnace is 7 times hotter. The tribulation is for 7 years. That's Revelation chapter 11. Verse 23 to 25, 3 men survive the fire. And in Revelation chapter 7, it talks about the remnant that survives the tribulation. All right, and then you got chapter 20, verse 22, the enemy is thrown into the fire. The guys that were basically bringing these 3 kids to throw them into the fire, remember they catch fire because the fire is so hot, their clothing catches fire, these generals, okay? And then the beast and the false prophets in chapter 9, in Revelation 19, verse 20, are thrown into the fire. So where am I going with all this? So the angel is the word malek, that's the messenger. So we see that a letter in Revelation is written to a messenger. We see that there is some possible angelic activity going on in Daniel chapter 3 with those guys in the fire. I mean, angels, Paul and Silas, angels, Peter, the angel of the Lord, Exodus, Moses. I mean, the firing bush. I mean, like, it's everywhere. I think it's so important for us to, not to emphasize angels, but to understand that they are an intricate part of God's plan. And I just really felt this morning to really be led to talk about that. But here's one of the things that I really kind of wanted to get into, and we're going to land the plane here before we move forward. And guys, if y'all have any questions, please just comment below on some of these things. If I'm not clear, I know I'm kind of trying to cover a good bit. So we understand in, let me just pop over there, Revelation chapter 11. No, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's this one. Please hold. Yeah, here we go. It says, chapter 13, because the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image, here's an image, in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its the number of its name. That's interesting. There's a mark. You can't buy or sell without this mark. Okay, but here's something that I didn't really know about until I started kind of digging in. And here's something and we're going to land the plane here. So remember how Satan comes in as the angel of light, but he's deceptive. It's like counterfeit to God. I don't know if I've ever said that to you guys, but that's how that works. Here's what's interesting. In Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4, remember Ezekiel was around the same time as Daniel. Like, things are going on here. This is what I found fascinating. Chapter 9, verse 4. Then the Lord called to the man clothed in linen, who had a writing kit at his side, and said to him, go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it. As I listened, this is Ezekiel speaking, follow him through the city and kill without showing pity or compassion. Slaughter the older men, the young men, mothers, children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the old men who were in front of the temple. What's interesting about this is about this whole chapter in Ezekiel chapter 9 is about judgment on idolaters. What I find fascinating is you're marked in Revelation, and that represents, like, you're marked by the Antichrist spirit. And here there's a mark, but it's the name of God mark on you. So you see how there's a counterfeit always going on here? It's interesting. I'm probably going to dig a little bit more into this. It was just something that came up while I was doing the study on this. And remember, I'm in this with you. There's things that I am aware of, and as I'm digging, I was like, ooh, hold up. There's more to this. So, chew on this stuff with the similarities between Daniel and Revelation. I don't usually get too caught up in Revelation because, God is not a God of fear. And God is not a God of division. And, oftentimes when you start talking about revelation and judgment, it creates something with human beings. And that is not the heart of this. It is the whole point of this is for you guys to study the word for yourself, to dig in, to get into the glory of God. You have to get into his word, and you get into his word by getting into his glory. They go hand in hand. And I just really want you guys to, there are things going on in our world that is fascinating to me. And, some people can look and get scared. I'm like excited because to me, like, we have not seen the revival awakening where people are, these hands are going to be used to heal people. These hands are going to be used to call people back to life that have been dead. Because the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and the love of God are going to be so upon his people. And there's a separating going on. Honestly, that's what I believe was going on. There is a total separation, separating sheep from goats right now, as to who really are God's people and who's just been like talking a good game, but the game is over. Everything that is hidden and in secret is going to come to light. And there's lots of stuff going on that's coming to light right now. It just takes a little bit of pressure and a lot of light. Arise, shine, for your light has come. Not that I was going to preach a message, but instead of, notice where you're starting to get caught up in fear, because that's not of God. The fear of the Lord is pure and clean. God is this is an exciting time, and I am anticipatory, and you should be too, because we're about to see some groovy stuff that ain't no movieplex, ain't no special effects, ain't no nothing that our grandparents or great grandparents have ever seen on the earth. We're about to start seeing some stuff that even Paul and Silas wish they would have seen. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, now I'm really on my preaching thing. I get excited about this stuff because I love the heart of God. I love his heart for people, and I am super excited for what he's doing. And I love you guys. Y'all have a blessed day. Really, if you have any questions, comment it. I haven't decided if we're going to jump straight into Daniel chapter 4 tomorrow or not. There's some preparation that I really want to do in it, and so we're just going to roll with it because I'm still chewing on some of this stuff that's popped up. So I love you guys. Y'all have a blessed day. May God bless you. May he just really speak to you. May his words go deep down. Any place that there's fear that's coming up, that he speak his supernatural peace that destroys the connecting force to chaos. I love you guys. Peace out. See you tomorrow.